in-depth race recaps.
He's shown speed, he's shown dominance at other racetracks.
Pit stops and strategy.
Hell yeah, boys. Let's go. Race strategy, man.
Fantasy racing insights.
Think about being a team in the summer. We did it. Good job, boys.
Your weekly home for everything Ryan Blaney and Team 12.
Good job, Timmy. Here's the many more, fellas. Thank you.
This is the Team Blaney Podcast.
Let's go race for a championship.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 202 of the Team Blaney Podcast. My name is Adam Rogers, and alongside me is co-host Steve Mez. This week, we're here to break down Ryan Blaney's run in the Cookout Southern 500 at Darlington Raceway. Steve, welcome back to another episode of the show. After the Crown Jewel Southern 500 last night in Darlington, I would say a race that kind of proves its the moniker that the track gets, the too tough to tame. It's become a race where execution's important. You have to have a really almost perfect night in order to win that thing. And the driver that ended up going to victory lane pretty much had that. And even though the driver changed in the car, it was eerily similar to a previous driver that was in there, and also ends up being the driver that won the race last year in a totally different car. So we had a conversation during the race about some guys that just are good at tracks, and it's amazing how things can change, cars can change, and they have a knack for it. And I think we kind of saw that on display this past weekend.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was about to say. Is that I was going to bring up Eric Jones's name, right? Because same thing. He did not start near the front and passed some guys just based on abilities and strengths. And truthfully, you know that the program they have over there, Legacy, isn't that good, as far as what they have on, as far as race speed. So something to be said about these guys who are just kind of really good at that type of track or that specific track, because that's another thing too. That track is different than any other track we go to. With the banking, with the length track, to do two different circumferences of each end. Just all the different things are just unique, and for somebody to hit on it the way those two or three guys have is just amazing. Because Larson's also another one who knows exactly how to run the radius at one end or the other end of the track, and that's a whole other thing to talk about is Hendrick and where they are right now. Because they're not looking too hot as a whole.
Yeah, it was an interesting race so far because, you did see, it was almost total Toyota domination when it came to this race. But you saw different Toyotas. I don't think people expected Legacy Motor Club. I think people expected maybe Eric Jones to be in the mix, but did people see John Hunter Nemechek having a career day? I didn't, and I thought it was going to be a fluke at first because he pulled a similar strategy as to what SVG's team did throughout the race. And what you saw there, I think, was a tale of two different cars and two different drivers and experience levels, and to where it really worked out for the 42. It turned into a miserable day for the 88. And I want to ask you about that a little bit later anyway, when maybe we recap like what happened with the playoff drivers. But Toyota, though, Denny Hamlin, I think if he doesn't have the issues that he has, he probably would have been in the mix as well during that race. So it was very interesting to see. And then you have the one random Chevrolet that has the strong run in AJ Allmendinger. That was surprising to see, but also nice to see because that team has had speed this year. You saw some flashes of brilliance between him and the 10 car at times, but they don't always have the finishes, and they finally put a whole race together. And it was good to see AJ in brighter spirits because sometimes he's one of those guys that gets down on himself real quick.
Yeah, that was interesting. That certain guys who have the experience and know how to run there, they just do. And AJ was a really good one because there were little strategy things that worked here and there, but for the most part, everybody was on the same strategy. The only time things really differed is the green flag pit stop cycles, when guys could come a little earlier or later, and then it showed how good your tire wear was and how good you were for let's say you pitted 2 or 3 laps before anybody else, because this helps Ryan later on, as we find out during the one run, and would have helped him in this next run to follow if it wasn't for a car being on fire. So.
Yeah, I think it really was just the 42 and the 88, and I think the 42 only did it once in the first. They just one stopped it, which in the 88 did that in the last stage too, and it failed because of the way the caution came out. But at a place like Darlington with the tire wear as it is, it just was. I thought it was crazy thing to attempt. But it worked out for the 42 earlier on in the race, and they got the track position they needed, and then you saw that the car actually kind of was able to back that up. Now, what we saw with Ryan, and I think maybe a theme that we'll talk about, and hopefully we don't have to talk about a lot during this playoff run, is
Mhm.
that sometimes when races don't go your way, this 12 group is really good about kind of rallying. Sometimes better, sometimes they do better than what they were able to do in this case, but this case they had two different things that set them back during this race that we'll go through. But there's a point during this race that, I'm at the track and I'm texting you and I'm like, man, it's just insane how one race can totally change your whole playoff outlook. And that was at a point when Ryan was like +4 to the cut line or
Yeah.
something. It was pretty much at the lowest of the low of the race. And they kept working on things. They got things better. And then obviously they got to a much more decent finish in the end. But it just shows you the playoff system works. It just can get scary real fast.
Yeah. It was, makes last week even more important, right? Because what was that? About a 7 or 8 point uh, uh, position change right at the end of last week with what they did by finishing second in the standings and winning the race and all the playoff points that gave them. I mean, if you look at it now, and we will look at that after the race recap, you'll see that the biggest part of it is that difference the last week made, because like I said, that was like a 5, 6, 7 point swing. Not just winning the race, but then going from sixth in the standings to second. So it showed up, and then hopefully you won't need it again until the next round.
So let's talk about Ryan's weekend. And going into this weekend, I think we had a little bit of optimism. Darlington in the past had not been one of his best tracks. He's had some incidents in the past. He's had some stronger runs, but just not the finishes. But there was a flash of brilliance in the spring race where
Mhm.
they almost won. If it wasn't for our friend in the 5 car out there trying to set the fast lap and everything, which I think he succeeded in back then, and crashing with the 23 at the end,
Yeah,
Ryan wins the spring race at Darlington.
yeah,
So we're like, okay, they've got something figured out. They've got some speed, and
yeah,
I think it made us optimistic for this weekend.
yeah. And he set the fastest lap in the spring, but he brake checked the 23. Let's not forget that. That was a payback, and that was probably payback from Vegas prior. That was one of those deals where anytime he sees the 23, he's gonna, and that just totally flipped the race because the strategy had worked perfectly. Ryan had just passed for the lead. Was one of the faster cars on the day. I think the 24 was pretty fast too, but Ryan was one of the faster cars on the day in the spring, and so they come to practice on Saturday, and really weird the way practice worked out again. Usually the second group is faster because of the track getting cleaned up a little bit from the first group. But what ended up happening is they went so early in the morning to start with, the track started heating up as the practice went on. So the second group wasn't as fast as the first group. So when you're looking at some of these practice single lap times and so forth, it didn't look very, very promising because like the individual lap was like 28th best in that second group for him and 28th overall. But then you looked at like the overall lap average. Like he ran 44 laps, and overall lap average, he was like 10th or 11th, but it was like the fastest in the group. If you separated, if you looked at the 10 guys above him, all those guys were from the first group. And then like on TV, they showed you this little chart, the speed chart that kind of compared the nines run during that practice and the 12s run. And the first lap or two, Ryan is way up high. So he had to drag or something to space himself out on the first lap or two, which throws those numbers off even more. So everything looked really promising. And then qualifying came, and you go out last, and you usually should think the same thing. It's going to get better as you go along. But really, what ends up happening is if you look at Denny, I think went out like 8th or 10th from the last, right? And nobody could get to him afterward. And it's because the track started losing grip because the sun was coming out and really heating the track up and making it slicker. So to get away with, you know, 12 after all of that was not bad. It was only like 2 or 3 tenths off, So for the most part, pretty good start. It gives you decent amount of pit selection. It gives you a chance to start near the front, get 2 points, for the race itself. So overall wasn't a great Saturday. It wasn't hitting out of the ballpark, but it was pretty decent, really. And if you, like I said, if you took things into consideration like that with what happened with the sun itself and how early they went versus when the practice ended, um, it wasn't bad.
Yeah, and I mean, and we saw in the practice when it got to the long run, they had the speed again, and that's what the one thing about the spring race too, and the strategy they were on. It's the classic Jonathan Hassler long run car, and everything was working out perfectly until the late caution. And in these practices, it started to show that speed on the longer run. And coming out of practice, me listening to MRN and some other stuff, the two cars they were talking about were the 12 and the 9, who were very
Yeah.
similar, and they had the long run speed. Now in the race, it gets very different as to what happens. Honestly, both of them end up having kind of bad races, but
Yeah.
for different circumstances. The 12 had bad races because of incidents. The 9 had a bad race just because the whole team was off. So that was a little odd.
Yeah. So we get to Sunday, stages of 115, 230, 367, 13 sets of tires, fuel run of 68 to 75 laps, pit stall 5. We're in front of the 10, and the 77 is the pit stall in front of us. And this becomes a lot interesting later. The 11 got the pole, Ryan P12 here. The 5 car at the start of the race needed a push. Something was going on. It was weird there, but once they got the race started, he was fine. Never heard anything that caused him to be slow. And he actually ran top 10 for good portions of the race. He was the only Hendrick car like that. So the 30, I think it was 34 and the 51 to the rear for adjustments. The 11 taking the top at the start, and Tim and so lap 1. I have a note. I have it written above what happened. So lap 1 into turn 2, the 21 just snaps loose, and pirouettes and takes like a bunch of cars. The 45 and the 48 end up getting into this. The 48 end up getting some damage. And then the note I have is Tim and Ryan. Ryan was asking Tim, I really don't want to know how close that was, or something like that, because they just barely missed being part of the melee.
Very, very close. This was like how Ryan and some of the 7 DNFs this year, where he gets clipped right at the last second. It was that close to him getting hooked into the wall. And the 21 describes this crash. I mean, he said like practice and qualifying was fine yesterday. He went down into the turn for this, and he said he watched, I forget who was behind him. He watched their in-car camera, and he says you could just see the car bottoming out as they went through. So I don't know if that's a setup thing or just the angle he took into the corner. But yeah, he spins on his own. The 8, I saw the 8 in car. Again, if people want to talk about Ryan losing his mind, the 8 in car after this, because he gets collected like immediately, and that guy can't catch a break this year either. It was just, it just sets up a bad thing, and right away for some of these playoff guys. You really thought the 45 was going to be in trouble. That turns out not to be the case by the end of the race, but the 48 just... Man, I know people keep trying to say he's on the hot seat and stuff, but to immediately start the playoffs like this after just barely getting into the playoffs in the first place, unless he goes out and wins one of these next 2 races, I mean, it's just, they're in an awful position right now.
Yeah, so Ryan ends up 10th out of all that happening, and the 19 chooses the top for the next restart. Ryan the top. And restart lap 6 here, and it kind of single files out, and he ends up behind the 3. Lap 15 here, running the wall in 3 and 4. Lap 20, catching the 3. Lap 25 here, half second behind the 3. About 7 seconds behind the leader. Lap 26 here. Jonathan says about 15 more laps for the pit stop. So that when he says stuff like that, a lot of times it's just to kind of like get a balance update at some point. When Ryan has a chance, he'll then tell him, you need this or don't need that. Lap 35, the 48 starts a green flag cycle here. Lap 37 here, we go all the way up to 4 because everybody kind of hits pit road at the same time here. The 23 is leading. And lap 38, we're pitting. That's a 10.480. Jonathan tells them don't slide them coming in because they're afraid these boxes are a little bit slick, and they were just kind of afraid of getting too deep and then kind of thrown off the whole pit stop. Lap 42 here he was back out. He's in the 21st position, 1 lap down. The 23 hasn't pitted yet. That's part of it. At lap 45, the 42 assumes the lead, and Ryan's up to 16. At lap 51, we passed the 22 to get to 15th. At lap 52, passed the 99 to get to 14th. At lap 53, passes the 7 to get to 13th. At lap 57 here, passing the 71 to get to 12th. Lap 58, the 42 finally pits. So we get to 11th here at lap 60. Let's see here. We're up to P28. I'm sorry. We're 11th. The 24 is the one who's P8. So the 24 had pitted a lap too earlier, and he had taken advantage of the tires to the point where he was able to jump us. So the 19 is leading here at lap 65 here. We are catching the 24. And then the lap 68, the 48 pits again. So it kind of starts another cycle here. And at lap 71 here, passing the 45 and the 24 to get to 9th. Pitting is continuing. We get to 7th. At lap 72, we're in 6th. Lap 74, the 23 is leading again. We're into 4th. At lap 75, up to P3 with the 5 leading. And at lap 78, we pit. It's a 9.660, an even better stop than the first one. At lap 80 here, when we come back out, P15 here, but on the lead lap. So it cycled really well this time because most of the guys decided to pit at the same time. Nobody was hanging on for a late pit stop here. The 42 was leading. And then at lap 82, we're up to 14th. At lap 83, we passed 71 to get to 13th. At lap 90, we're chasing the 54. The 19 has assumed the lead again. Lap 95, passing the 3 to get to 11th. At lap 100, behind the 6. He's a lap down, so he's kind of in the way. At lap 105 here, past the 42. We're all the way up to 8th. At lap, or 9th, I'm sorry. At lap 110, okay, 8th, 10th, 11th. I'm getting lost in how many passes we've done here. By lap 115, the 19 wins stage 1, Ryan's P10. So I think the 24 ended up passing us again. Here's what happened. So P10, a stage point to start, cycling pretty good. I mean, truthfully, all the 2 complete cycles, and they were 10th when they started the cycles, they're 10th coming out of the cycles. So now this might change some things in the future for like maybe hitting a little earlier than everybody else, because that lap or two over 2 seconds a lap faster makes a huge difference.
This is what I would say is a little bit different in this type of track, to where, again, they had a really good run in the spring and were going to potentially win with a long run car. But the way this race is and the way the tire wear is, it's almost like you don't have enough time for that to play out sometimes. Because like you said, it's like as soon as the pit cycle was over, and I know the 48 was doing it for other reasons because they're just desperate to try to stay on the lead lap and stuff, and why they came in so early. But it's like as soon as a pit cycle is fully done, there's only like a few laps go by, and then it's like starting all over again. So everything is so chaotic, and people are in and out, and people are a lap down. They're not a lap down. They're passing their way back onto the lead lap. It makes it an interesting to race to be at, and it's one of those situations where we have headsets in the track, and sometimes I'm listening to Ryan's stuff, but for the most part, we're listening to the radio broadcast just so we can keep up with everything that's happening, especially when it's loud and you can't really hear like the PA announcer or something like that, because I feel for like seeing some of the other people like around in the section that don't have headsets on or anything. And I'm like, how is anyone even following along outside of just being able to look at the pylon and the tracks that still have a pylon, to know who's in what place and where and laps down and everything. So it's interesting.
It's interesting that last night or yesterday, the timing and scoring for NASCAR's app was pretty good, and it was the TV was like, because we're bouncing off satellites and how long it takes to get it, it seemed like it timed up really well. So a lot of what we were watching, at least what I was watching with my timing and scoring on the NASCAR app, was pretty good, like to the point where I knew who he needed to pass, who he passed. And then watching the in-car camera, this is another thing with like combination of things we're doing. Watching the in-car camera, you can see where he comes out in traffic. And I think that's something that you get lost on the TV broadcast. You don't see if you're following your guy. You just see 15th place or a lap down. You don't see when he comes off a pit road, who he's around, who he's in front of. Does he have to race with somebody for a lap or two? Does it take him a lap longer than it should to get around somebody who's on older tires because of the way the cycle worked out? So some of those things have a lot to do with losing position or gaining position. And like I said, we're going to see later on that Ryan does one pit cycle he probably gains like 5, 6, 8 spots because of when he pitted, came out, and how it cycled. So we're pitting from P10 here, and it's a 9.70 stop here, coming out P10, so pretty good. The 19 once again leading here, and Ryan makes a comment about the sun setting finally in 3 and 4, like within the next 20 minutes or so, it finally comes down low enough because it was right in their eyes. Once again, watching the in-car camera as they go down the backstretch, right in their eyes going into 3 and 4. 19 chooses the top here. Ryan on the bottom here kind of gains a row by doing this, gets himself up to like what would be the 8th position. Restart lap 122 here, sorts to P8. At lap 123, the 11 gets the lead for a little bit. At lap 125 here, we're behind the 20. And at lap 131, the 43 passes. And so we're 9th. And that's I think when we text about the 43, that's when we were texting about it. Because all of a sudden, he's just, he did nothing strategy-wise that was any different than anybody else to this point. He just was passing people because he's that good at this track. You know,
maybe he was passing people that whole run. I guess was watching one by one by one, and that's when that exchange happened because you just kind of marvel at it sometimes that when he's been good in different generations of car for different teams, and some guys just kind of get it. It's interesting. Yeah, when tires leveled out a little bit, he leveled out, but that was dirty air and getting caught behind guys and all old tires. But I think he got to like about 6th at one point there. 19 took the lead back. At lap 135 here, Johnson says we want to go about 10 more this run if you can keep it under you. So he warns them we want to go a little longer this run because they're going to split the stage differently. Lap 140, all the top 10 guys lead times, lap times are within a tenth of each other. That's another interesting thing watching the app. It's like it updates every lap, and you're looking and you look down. If you go down, it's like 0.9, 0.8, 0.9, 0.8, 0.8, 0.9. They're all the same. So nobody was going anywhere, and you can't really pass anybody unless you're about 3 to 4 tenths better, where you can get that actual run. So at lap 145 here, once again, Jonathan makes sure it's okay with Ryan to run longer. He says, "Yep, copy that." They're in P9 at this point still, and like I said, the 43 got to 7th, and that's kind of where he was stuck at that point. And I'm wondering if they were running a little later because they wanted to get the sun to go down, then put the tires on, have more grip on the next run, with better tires. I'm always, so lap 152 here is when the 77 spins off of 4. They're pitting from P9. And it ends up, if you use the timing that they use, a 15.360 stop. And that's not how long the pit stop actually took. Watching the in-car camera, they tell them to hold on for a second because something happened. And the next thing you see out the front windshield is the 77 facing him in the pit box in front of him. That's never good. Never good. Now, I didn't realize at that point, I thought that Ryan hit him because Ryan is pitting right behind him. And I kind of thought, well, Ryan had came out and hit him enough and swerved him. And then I realized or found out watching TV that the 20 car, who's 2 pit boxes behind Ryan, actually came out of his pit box and hit him. Now, that's another thing. 2 pit boxes behind him means the 77 was coming in a little shallow to begin with. If it was the 10 pit box, which is right behind Ryan, I can kind of see it. If guys are in the pit boxes, you almost have to get to the apex of Ryan's pit box and then turn hard left. So he was a little too tight to begin with if you watch the replay of this, to where he shouldn't have been where he was. Once again, you're going to say the 20 should have been held up. I'm going to say something like from watching it, because I went back and I rewatched the 77 in-car camera. And the 77 in-car camera, I watched from going down the backstretch coming to pit road because I want to hear communication, want to hear what they were telling. Well, first off, at this point in the race, he's 24th, but he's last car on the lead lap because of the spin out that he just did. So the fact he's able to pit with the leaders to begin with is a miracle, but he's catching up as it is coming down the backstretch. They tell him about 3 different times before he even gets to pit road, when you get here, make sure you're out in front of the 12 enough. They tell him that, and then they tell him, we're going to stop to check the toe. So they're automatically telling him this is not going to be your normal 10-second pit stop. It's
probably going to be 15, 20 seconds. We're probably going to look at it. We might take almost the half the lap. So, you might have to catch up to the field, whatever. But they literally tell them it's going to be a longer pit stop. So this is where, and this is, we have already texted about this, and this is where we differ about this. My thinking is, and I go back to last week at Daytona. Last week at Daytona, Ryan was the last car in the lead lap at a pit stop during a yellow or caution or stage break. I'm not sure which one of the two it was. Was last car in the lead lap. He knew he was going to take fuel, but they decided they're going to take tires. The one car who was behind him on pit road was going to go fuel only. So they told Ryan, drag back. So he drags back coming down pit road and was going to wait for the one car to pull out. Now, the only thing that happened there is the one car screwed up the pit stop totally because he slid through the box. He had to back up to get fuel. While he's doing that, Ryan's sitting there, and then Ryan finally decides to go ahead and pit the car because he had time to do it. But otherwise, he would have waited for that one car to move out and then pit it. And I believe that from the time he entered pit road, the 77 should have been told that. 77 should have been told there's going to be a lot of action up here. Why don't you just drag back a little bit, let everybody come off pit road, let everybody get out of the way that you can, get yourself in a position when you get here, and then pit. He was obviously not told to do that. He ran in there like he was going to do a 10-second pit stop. But once again, he was not going to do a 10-second pit stop. That's the part that's driving me crazy about the whole situation is they knew they were going to stop and look at the car. They were going to check the toe. Those are the exact words they said on the in-car. So why the crew chief or the spotter, because I've heard Tim take control of this before too. One of the two should have told him to just drag back. You were not getting positions on this pit stop. You were not coming in there and going to be able to squeeze your way into your pit stall and do a 10-second stop and maybe beat two guys who had longer stops. You were going to pit last and you were going to come off pit road last. So crew chief, what the heck is his name? Let me find him here. Lucas Lambert. Luke Lambert, it's on you. You're the guy I'm looking for to have a little meeting with after the race. I'm not even blaming Hocevar on this. Hocevar was just doing what he was told to do. He was just trying to do the same thing he does every other pit stop. He had no clue. Nobody told him about the 20 pulling out or the 12 going to be there or anything more than, just kind of make sure you make room. But time-wise, coming down pit road, and we've heard Tim do it, I've heard Josh do it, he lets you know that if the guy's there, he's going to already be there. He might be coming out. He warns of those things. And like I said, in this situation, in the playoffs, if you're pitting around a bunch of other guys and you're the last car on the lead lap to begin with and you're not going to get any positions, why are you putting yourself in the middle of everything? It's on you, Luke Lambert. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Go ahead and blame the 20. Good.
So everything you said, I agree with 100%. I would agree. I don't think he needed to be there. But what I said to you earlier was, I agree with all of that, but that's not what happened. So to me, that doesn't matter.
Well, my only thing about that though is that why didn't it happen?
I get that. And that's what I said. There's a lesson
to be learned there, right? There's a lesson that needs to be learned, and it's actually on the crew chief. Like I said, it's not even. The spotter could take control if he's a veteran like Tim, because I've heard Tim do it, and I've heard Josh do it over the years. Those are veteran guys. I don't know much about his spotter. Who is his spotter? I got it written down here too. Tyler Green. I don't know much about Tyler. I don't know how much Tyler's been doing. I'm sure he's professional, like most of those guys are. But yeah, he went from 9th to 20th because of this. And this sets up the rest of the day. This situation, this problem, this incident, you lose a spot or two based on a tire bouncing away wrong or a lug nut having an issue and locking up the gun. That's one thing. You look within the team. But when it's an outside thing and then it causes you to run with squirrels the rest of the night and have the issues you end up having and having to try and make your way back up, that's bad.
But yeah, like again, I agree with everything you said, but what I also said to you was that didn't happen, so now I don't care. Because since that didn't happen, there's 3 other people involved in this that could have made this not happen. And I made the joke to you. I was like, okay, so what you suggested did not happen. The 77 was there. Was he invisible or something? Because I don't think he was. And there's 3 people that could have helped avoid this: the 20 crew chief, the 20 spotter, and the 20 driver. Because regardless of why the 77 was there, he was there. So that doesn't mean you can just drive right out into a car. The way it works with Tim and Jonathan, when they clear Ryan out of a stall, they usually have it worked out before the race. Like someone counts him into the box, someone, Jonathan tells him to go, and sometimes Jonathan tells Tim, you clear him out of the box, or I'm going to clear him out of the box. A lot of times it's on the crew chief, just based on just how it works and how that is. So again, I agree with you 100%. The 77 didn't need to be there. I don't care though, because he was there. And I made another joke to you. I was like, yeah, good luck telling the police officer that when you hit that guy changing lanes, he wasn't supposed to be there. Well, he was there, and you're the one changing lanes. So
that's another thing. That's another thing I'd like to know. Probably should have listened to the 20s in car too. I probably should have went back and listened to the 20s, because maybe he did tell him he was there.
Yeah.
But then again, you're talking about rules of the road versus the rules of the NASCAR road. And I'm not sure what the etiquette is on pit road. I do believe there's something to be said for guys who are not in the playoffs being in the way of guys who are in the playoffs, though. And the fact that they chose a pit stall that's right in that mix, that's on them too. They were in the middle of the mix. They knew they were there, and they should proceed with caution because they're not one of the 16 teams. It's great to measure yourself versus those other teams when you have a chance to. And there were different times they came down pit road where they did come in and around Ryan properly at the right time. But also, once again, like I said, I've already seen and heard enough etiquette during the years from a lot of other guys, including Ryan, obviously, where when you're the last car on pit road, the last car on the lead lap, you don't get in the way of anything. You just don't. And that's the biggest thing. They were the last car on the lead lap, and they weren't going to lose the lead lap. That's the funny part either. If they drag back a second or two and still do their 20-plus second pit stop to check the car, they're still going to come back off of pit road. Ryan had a hairier moment later on in the race where he almost didn't get off pit road in time and almost lost the lap when they were patching up the car from the 8 damage. So
yeah, and I know we're in that agreed.
We're going to put a poll up somewhere. Yeah. I don't know. We'll put one on Twitter later with the video of that maybe or something. And we'll let the public decide who's right.
Yeah, because we're in that agree to disagree area to where we'll just keep going in circles. But the last couple of things I was just going to say was that, again, I agree with you 100%. He probably maybe shouldn't have been there, but he was there. So at that point, I think it puts it on the exiting car. The exiting car has to make sure they don't drive out into somebody that's there, regardless of what reason they're there for. The only other thing I wanted to mention, another point that was brought up, and I believe this was Christopher Bell in his post-race, and he did bring up what you said, the etiquette thing, non-playoff drivers should yield to playoff drivers, yada, yada, yada. He got roasted on social media for that because they're saying, yeah, it's great that there's 16 playoff drivers out there, but in this sport, everybody else is allowed to play still. They deserve to be able to be there. They deserve to be able to compete. Again, you'll say that's fine. And I don't really care. I don't have an opinion on that.
No. That's interesting.
But he did express that about that etiquette type thing.
Well, that's the thing. Is like they're right to roast on that regard. About my biggest thing has nothing to do with him being able to race with everybody. My biggest thing is you were the last car on the lead lap again. You were not gaining any positions, and once again, listening to your in-car camera, they told you about 2 or 3 times that we're going to stop, do the pit stop, and then check the toe. So it was not going to be a 10-second, hurry up, get in here, hurry up, get out of here, see who can beat kind of pit stop. It was going to be we're 24th, and when we leave pit road, we're still going to be 24th. So that's where the etiquette thing should be in play. If he was racing in the normal part of the race, because he ends up finishing 9th in the race, right? So if he's in the normal part of a pit cycle or a normal part of a yellow flag pit stop with everybody else, and he comes in 12th and he leaves 8th, comes in 8th and leaves 9th, that's fine. But once again, you were the last car in the lead lap. It's a whole different thing because of that. That's the only thing that makes it different to me. I would not, like I said, and once again, I'm not blaming Carson either. Once again, not blaming Carson. That's the funniest thing about the whole thing is we're not blaming Carson. Carson is just doing his job. No one told Carson. This to me is the crew chief more than anybody else, because I heard Jonathan do it the week prior in a similar situation. They weren't going to repair damage, but they were going to do 4 tires, and the other cars weren't. And they were the last car coming down pit road, and the one car was going to be there doing a quick fueling, and they were just like, hey, hang back and let him fuel up. We're going to be last car. We're going to take 4 tires. We're going to take our time and get it right. We're going to fill it up, pack it full of fuel, and we're probably going to come down the next time around it and pack it some more. So just, if you're the last car in the lead lap, there's something to be said for just kind of like not being in the middle of something.
So the other thing I was going to say about Bell and his comments after, and I'm pretty sure it was him, and I said it was a different perspective on what you're saying and actually might go along with what you were thinking, and it not working out, though, is he said he thought the 77, and you watched his in-car all the way back entering pit road, so maybe you can refute this. But he said his understanding was that the 77 did a really bad job of catching up to the back of the field when they were pitting. And he thought if he had done a better job of catching up to the back of the field when everybody pitted, he would have already been in his stall as everybody was exiting. So he thought he actually lagged behind too much to where it was timed bad to where he was getting there right when they were exiting instead of already being in his stall. So that was the other thing. When you were telling me what you're talking about, I was like, oh, I heard him say something different. So maybe he was trying and he just failed at that too. So that's the other thing.
I have to look. I have to go back and look again, because I watched him down the backstretch, and the big thing to me was I'm watching him going down the backstretches. They were having a communication problem. There was 2 or 3 things they couldn't hear, and they were going to change an antenna. That was from the crew chief, but then he heard what he was saying, and he was saying about checking the toe. We're going to check the toe, and then one of the things communicated to him is that the 12 will already be here, so make sure you go around him. Maybe there was something there too. It didn't seem like he caught up to the back of the pack very well either. You're right.
So the reason,
we're beating but the only thing is this triggers what happens the rest of the race being a issue.
That's what I was going to say, is the reason that's such a big deal to us is that it puts Ryan loses the positions, and you kind of said this in the middle of us giving our opinions on it. It puts him back, like you say, it puts him back with the squirrels, and that sets up what happens next. So that's why this is such a big deal for us to talk about the what ifs and the why and the what could have been different, and because the race could have been totally different for the 12 if this specific thing doesn't happen.
Right. I almost opened up the bottle early last night instead of waiting for tonight. I almost cracked it open last night just to start. So where are we at? We got to the end of that. We're going to start, and Johnson says we're going to do about 2 36, 37 lap runs here. Restart lap 157 here. The 11 also had a bad stop, so the 11 has issue too, ends up back there, but sorts out the P22 here, and now we're going to start battling back at lap 160, passing the 3 to get to 21st, 161 past 77 to get to 20th, 163 passes the 88 to get to 19th, and 174 passes the 4 to get to 18th. At lap 180, we're only 1 second behind 14th. So 4 spots are all right in front of us within a second here. At lap 183, the 4 passes us, and we're in 19th here. So now, another lap or 2 later, we decide we're going to pit. Now, we're pitting from, like I said, about 19th. So this is interesting to note here, because we're actually starting the pit cycle a little early compared to some of the other guys. It's a 10.040 stop, and we come back out 30th a lap down, 192 here up to 20th with the 9 leading at lap 193.17, lap 195, 14th on the lead lap. So we gained about 4 or 5 spots right there. At lap 196, the 19 assumes the lead. We're all the way up to 13th. Just on that pit cycle. 6 spots, hitting a lap or 2 early, getting out there. And then once again, where you cycle out, come out of the pit stop, and how many guys you have to pass, whether you're able to run just pure laps, makes a huge difference. About 16 seconds back of the lead. At lap 202 here, we get a caution for the 51. Looked like the 60 punted him. We're pitting from 13th. Yeah. We're pitting from 13th with a 9.50 stop to come out 12th. So gain a spot on our pit stop there. The 8 is the car we end up beating on that pit stop. So really interesting here. The 43 is up to 3rd at this point. The 16 is in 5th. The 17 is in 7th. The 42 is in 8th. The 54 in 10th, and the 60 in 11th. I wanted to kind of take a note there of all these non-playoff guys who are top 10 guys all of a sudden on good running cars. 19 takes the top here. Ryan takes the top in row 6 here, and they get the 20 is trying to fix their damage at this point here. Restart lap 209. The 8 spins out in front of us. And this is another one that, once again, cannot blame the 3 car. The 8 car, when you watch what he did, he spun out and then he saved it. So he actually had an excellent save. He shouldn't have spun out in the first place, but he had an excellent save. Ryan checks up, and the 3 tags us, and somebody played some audio with the 3, and he was trying to make sure he didn't. It wasn't his fault, really wasn't. Ryan was just caught in a bad spot at this situation. TV does a great job of showing Ryan locking it down and what he does to keep from hitting the inside wall. And I think that may have been some of the best work of the night. The only thing about this is he blows a tire, and he says the steering wheel's still fine. He's 29th at this point, and dude, get it down here and fix it. And like I said, he tried to drag it around, and it may have hurt the splitter a little bit doing this. And they spent some time fixing it, but they got it in pretty good shape, actually. So
I was going to ask your opinion on that. And we had crew chief Jonathan Hassler on last week for an interview. So if folks didn't listen to that or watch that, go back to our YouTube channel and check that out last week. Thanks again for him to come on. But that was the thing that fans questioned, especially even in our Discord. It was like right away. He was already going to have to he'd already spun out, lost all of this track position. Again, as you would say, last on the lead lap. Mm-hmm. The penalty would be to come down pit road maybe while it's closed and change the tire while it was still up enough before it got all the way down to the rim and had the splitter dragging. Again, hindsight's 20/20. They thought there was enough air in it, everything was going to be fine, but they don't pit right away. The penalty to doing that is that you have to start at the end of the longest line, so he would have to start a little bit further back if you if you come down pit road while it's closed. So that's the only thing I could see is maybe they're worried about having to start behind guys. But what are your thoughts on just not pitting immediately when they have a flat tire?
They were talking on the radio worried about ending up going a lap down.
Okay.
So I think that was the main thing. If they would have came down as soon as they could have came down instead of trying to catch up or let the pace car gather them up, they probably would have lost the lap. I think that has a lot to do with it. It's where the pace car was once he gathered the field and got everybody down to speed. And if he would have come around and just done it, he probably would have lost the lap there. So I think that's what the major concern was, at least on the radio.
Because what we're going to see is that they do go back out and run again, mm-hmm. and it's not going well. So they have to they end up pitting one more time, and they really work on it. And it's honestly after that totally fine. But yeah, it was just there were some people that had questions about that, and I was hoping that you could give a little insight. And that's good that was the discussion, was more about being afraid of going a lap down.
Lap down. So yeah. So we get lap 214 here, the one leading it, and lap 215. We passed the 34 to get to 8th. At lap 217, passed the 38 to get to 27th. At lap 221, passed the 38 to get to 28th now. Lap 222 here, we're back to about 30th here. And at lap 230, the 19 wins the stage, and Ryan's 31st. And like you said, he passed some of the cars that weren't very good at all. And he lost a little ground because, it started giving him problems. So Jonathan and Ryan are talking about fixing the damage. And they pit the second time by to avoid everybody. They're already going to be 34th. So, but
as a good team would.
Yes,
as a good team, last on the lead lap would.
Smart team, don't want to get in anybody's way, and give themselves the time to fix the damage. And it almost, like I said, the radio, they're like, we gotta go. Tim's like, gotta go. and Raymond was down, I think Raymond was down that right front side with Barabond and doing something, and they were finishing it up. And those guys, they got it fixed to at least good enough where they thought it was going to be good shape. And he beat him back out there, stayed on the lead lap.
It was very close. I was looking, and that's when, I saw the Discord chat and people talking about them saying they're worried about splitter damage. and I'm seeing the field come around the front stretch in front of me, and I'm like, oh man, it must be bad enough to where they're just going to take losing a lap here. But then luckily I see them fire off at the last second and get out there. So I was like, okay. But I was still concerned because I just seen him restart, pass a couple bad guys, and then immediately fall away to the end of the field again. And I was like, and I'm thinking about the 20 after the 20s incident with the damage on pit road and knowing their splitter was messed up. In a similar fashion, I'm like, is this going to be their fate the rest of the day now? Is he just going to run around in 30th? And looking at the maybe this is what I'm talking to you about, big things being the playoffs changing in an instant, because this is when I think he was all the way down to just +3 or +4 to the cut line after coming in ranked 4th in the standings. So
the
scary.
in-car camera app was pretty good. The in-car camera, on Max was pretty good about showing you where guys, they would flash it on the right side every once in a while, and on the left side it was always there. Sometimes a lap or two behind, but of where they were in the standings versus the cut line. So it's kind of interesting to watch. Like, okay, he's currently 9th, 20 some, or 16 or 5 points or whatever it was at different points in time. So it's interesting to watch that because they were literally keeping track of where everybody was and how they were, going to finish or how they were at that point in the race. So the restart, lap 231 here, the 45 is leading. Lap 239 past the 10, get to 32nd. Lap 240 past the 88, get to 32nd there. Lap 241 past the 99 to get to 31st. Lap 242 past the 47 to get to 30th. The 19 takes the lead back at lap 245 here past the 34. Lap 247 passes the 6. Lap 249 passes 48. Lap 250 passes 3. Lap 253 passes 35. Lap 260 passes the 20. Okay, we're up to 24th now. Okay, take a breath.
Can I say something? You mentioned real quickly past the 35.
Oh yeah.
And this was probably not on TV at all. And you could tell Ryan was in, like, I don't want to say angry Ryan mode or whatever, but like when he gets behind and he knows he is the car is better, and he just gets dialed in here, and like he's just clicking people off here. He absolutely cleared himself on the 35, and it was right in front of us on the front stretch, and it scared the heck out of me because the 35 did not lift at all. And sometimes when guys will slide up in front of you, you decide to lift and live to see another day. The 35 just drove right into his bumper, and I thought the 12 was going to go into the inside wall. So if he did, I wouldn't fault him for it. But Ryan was just in like this clicking off passes mode.
Yeah.
I just want to point out, like, it probably wasn't on TV anywhere, and you probably couldn't see it in the in-car. But it was awfully scary moment, the way that happened there. And I didn't see him do that the rest of the way, but that one was about as close as I had seen all day. And thankfully, he made it up through there.
Yeah. So lap 271 we're pitting here. It's a 9.540. Comes out 29th, one lap down as the cycle continues here. Lap 276, 27th a lap down. At lap 279 here, 22nd on the lead lap. So we've actually gained a spot or two on the pit cycle. About 23 seconds back of the 19 in P1. At lap 282, P16. And at lap 284, we get passed by the 77. We're back in 17th. At lap 288, the 11 passes with pressure tires. We're in 18th. And lap 291, we passed the 22 to get to 17th here. The 19 is still leading. We're about 25 seconds back of that. So we're still pretty solidly on the lead lap. At lap 295, we passed the 88 to get to 16th. At lap 300, P16, and running the same lap times as the leaders. And that was not with the leaders in traffic or anything. It was just flat out same lap time. So at lap 303 here, the 88 pits. And I wrote question mark last stop, like this might be their strategy. They're going to stop this last time, and that's it.
That was what they were doing. Yep.
Yeah. Jonathan asked for a balance update. And lap 305 here, we get a little help from the 21 getting out of the way because he's back on track trying to get some laps. At lap 310 here, we're P16, and we're actually 3/10 faster than the leader. And lap 312 we're pitting. So the P16, and the last time this worked out, if we pit before everybody and we get a cycle going and we get those 2 or 3 laps, it could be, I estimated 3 to 4, 4 to 5 spots is what happened earlier in the race when we did this. Once again, it depends on where you cycle out. You know me, I'm optimistic. But then again, we'll be back in the ball game at that point with one more pit stop possibly, right? And then we get this caution at lap 313 for the 44 car on fire. And of course they're going to take the wave around, but now they're in 27th after taking the wave around. Whereas if the green flag cycle continues, it's just like there's just one thing after another, right? And Ryan even kind of said that thing.
And I was gonna say, like, I'm honest. Earlier, I said there was basically just two things that put them back, but I forgot about this third one. So they had to battle back from three different situations that put them behind. Gosh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, this one here is really goofy because if it doesn't happen, that's a legit thing that happened. He come off pit road, he was on fire, he hurried up and got out of there. But if it doesn't happen and they go through a complete cycle here, like I said, could have been 13th, could have been 12th, and where he was tire wear at the end of a run compared to some of these other guys, and so forth. Who knows? Lap 3. Let's see here. John says we're going to try and run it out from here. Restart lap 318 and P26 with the 19 leading, sorts 24th. At lap 325, we passed the 3 to get to 23rd. And it's interesting. We're back here with some of these guys who are actually playoff guys too. They're back here. Past the next bunch of laps here, past the 41, the 6, 50, 51, the 22, the 24, the 5. We're all the way up to 17th on lap 352 here. The 6 passes us 10 laps later. We're in 18th. 19 wins, Ryan P18. And as you're going to tell us about the points and the playoff points here, really kind of salvaged what could have been a really bad situation. But other guys had even worse nights. So really should be thankful in a way we weren't some of those other guys because we were a couple feet away from being one of those other guys in a couple of situations.
Yeah. So to spin the day positive, at least what I would say is they had to battle back from adversity that was not created by themselves 3 times in this race. And I mentioned at the top of the show that this race specifically is all about execution, but also about having everything go your way, which you saw that happen with the 19 pretty much is maybe the only guy that everything went his way the entire race. Even the 45 who put up a valiant effort to try and win the race still got caught up in that first caution of the day that put them behind. But what we did see from the 12 team was nobody gave up. Nobody freaked out. Each one of these incidents, they worked their way through it. They did a little bit of damage repair. It wasn't good enough. They came back in the next time they had an opportunity to do it. They fixed it. They got him back out there. He was back out there on speed. This pit crew, and we asked Jonathan Hassler about this last week after the change they made earlier in the season, the pit crew has been lights out. They were on fire last night, though no one would really know just because the positions they were in. If I was going to say anything, and I think this might be more of a Ford as a whole situation in this race. They didn't have winning speed. We never really got the opportunity to see if they could do it. But based on everybody else in their manufacturer, Chris Buescher I think finished 10th and was the highest finishing Ford. Teammate Austin Cindric had like a just run-of-the-mill day. It actually turned out really well for him just because of what happened to the other playoff guys. Finishes 12th. So the highest of the Penske cars was in 12th. The 22 was out to lunch in this race. So if anything, that would be it. So, but I think with this team, they would have had at least, I think Ryan, without any incidents, would have had a top 10.
Top 10, yeah.
So that's what we'd have been looking at. And that's exactly what he kind of needed in this first round. You just kind of have to like getting as much points as you possibly can, make it through to the next round, and then you really have to keep locking in as it goes from there. Lots of playoff guys had trouble in this race. That includes Josh Berry, who crashed on the first lap, Alex Bowman. I think he was involved in that and then just involved in crazy stuff throughout the rest of the day. Austin Dillon ended up having a bad race. Again, I mentioned Logano. He had a bad race as well. All 4 of those guys are now up below the cut line. So Logano is -3 to the cut line, Dillon 8, Bowman 19, and Berry also 19. I want to ask your opinion on this with Shane Van Gisbergen. They finished 20th, I think, in this race in the spring, and we've already talked about the spring race and this fall race maybe not being similar. It's different times of day, setups have evolved, and things like that. Do you think if they would have just played the 88 strategy straight, they could have maybe finished 5 positions higher than they did? I think they finished around 30th or something, but they went into this like desperate, like I said, one-stop strategy, and they did it twice in different stages. They did it at the end. It sort of worked earlier in the race, and maybe that's why, but I feel like they could have they tried to like swing for the fence when they could have just tried to hit a base hit here and just have a solid first race out of the gate.
I think the problem is they they needed it, though. They needed it. The problem they had was that the cautions fell at the wrong times. The caution happens.
Yeah. That last
you know,
caution definitely hurt any
totally.
chance they had of it being good. That's right.
If they don't get that caution, and we see how they cycle out, and we see how the tire wear goes, and once they all get to a certain tire wear and they're all in the same lap time, he may have sorted out that 5 or 6 positions further up than he was. So that's where it kind of screwed them. Is the strategy never got a chance to play properly. Just like Ryan didn't get to play properly either because of that caution for the 44. If the car's not on fire and they, same thing. If they cycle out through a cycle, he probably gains 4 or 5 spots on, just fresher tires for 2 or 3 laps earlier than everybody else. So just one of those things where when cautions fall and you can't do nothing about it. So yeah, the problem that he has now is he's going to the next 2 tracks. He's never been to St. Louis. Somebody said he doesn't even know where it is on a map. And then Bristol, he doesn't like Bristol so far. He's been there and hasn't done well. So they're in deep trouble. They need other people to fall apart for them to make the next round at this point. I don't think, you look at the guys that are below him, and Joey's not going to fall apart in the next 2 weeks. And actually, Austin Dillon will probably perform well in the next 2 weeks. So there's 1, maybe 2 guys that can pass him pretty easily just on regular racing. What he needs is somebody who's close to him in points wise to have 2 bad weeks, and maybe he survives those 2 weeks.
So SVG went from, I believe, he was like 6th in the standings going in. He's fallen 6 spots all the way to 12th, plus 3 to the cut line. Chase Elliott's in 11th. He was part of that Hendrick brigade that just didn't seem to have speed, or at least race speed. He got into a little bit of a I don't even know, a back and forth with Hocevar, and actually it happened right before Hocevar spun, I believe, where Hocevar was doing Hurricane Hocevar things. Nearly crashed, in my opinion, from what I'm seeing at the track, for like a whole lap. Almost crashed the 42 himself in the 9 like multiple times before the 9 had enough. Pulled all the way down on the track, total slide job, blocked him coming out at 4, and then door slammed him down the front stretch after that to show his displeasure. So, but some would say that's part of like how I think Hocevar sort of unintentionally, I say he lacks calculation, gets in people's heads to where it distracted the 9. But the 9 had a bad race. He's just plus 9 of the cut line. The 20 was in that incident with the 77 and the 12 on pit road there. He's 10th now, plus 11. Cindric, like I said, if anyone, this worked out for Cindric on the day. 9th overall right now in the playoff standings, plus 12. He had just had a decent day, okay day, top 15 day. Ross Chastain showed speed at times during this race. They had a weird thing at the end where they had an issue fueling the car, and they had to come on and tell him in the closing laps, like, hey, we might be 2 laps short on fuel. So he was running, I believe, 7th at the time, and he thought he could get to 5th or so. That's about the limit. Instead, he had to back off. He said he switched his screen on his car to just show throttle, and he was only allowed to go to 50%. So he had to save, and he drifted all the way back to, I think, 11th or something like that. So Chastain's in a good spot, though, plus 21 to the cut line. The 12 is who I want to talk about. I believe Ryan was in 4th at the reset. With everything that happened, there was a point again in this day where he was only plus 3 or plus 4 to the cut line. And that was, he had to come back like from 2 more incidents after that in the end. So with the 18th place finish, with the 1 point in the stage to start the race, 7th overall in the playoff standings now. So he's dropped a few spots, but plus 22, pretty solid plus 22 heading into a race at Gateway, which has been a fantastic track for them. William Byron, again, part of that Hendrick brigade that, when Ryan was having trouble, he was back, and it's weird to say that. He was back there running with Byron. And this is a car in the 24 in the spring race that dominated the race. I believe he swept both stages and had a chance to win until the strategies were playing out different, and Ryan takes the lead toward the end of that race. And Byron has won at Darlington in the past as well, but he slips a little bit. He won the regular season, but now he is 6 overall in the standings, plus 25, and that's tied with Bubba Wallace, who is in 5th. Bubba had a super strong day. There's points where he was racing up front, racing for the lead, plus 25 to the cut line now for him and his teammate Tyler Reddick, who also had a very strong day eventually, nearly, had an opportunity to do what he does, and he has done. He did it in a spring race at Darlington before. I thought for sure Eric Jones was going to win this race because I thought the 45 would do 45 things and fence the 19 in himself, and the 43 would go on to win. Reddick said, I've done that in the past, and it didn't work out. Eric Jones in his interview said he's done that in the past. I thought that's what was going to happen. But he did the smart play. He gave it a valiant effort coming out of 4 to try to get side by side with the 19. Didn't work out, lost the race again. But he's in great shape points-wise, plus 35. Kyle Larson was pretty much non-existent, but he's had enough points and playoff points and things to be plus 38. Denny Hamlin, plus 43. He was a big gainer on the day, actually. Just with the way he had run, and he made a pretty big charge back to the front again after his issues. And Chase Briscoe's locked into the round of 12 now with the victory in the Southern 500. So all I have to say, if you're looking for things to be positive out of this race, and a race that wasn't really positive for the 12, but everything totally out of their hands, from incidents on pit road to getting run over, again, not the 3's fault, but checking up and getting run over, spun out. Caution falls in the middle of their pit cycle, going all the way back, passing his way all the way back up to 18th by the end of that race, salvaging a day. And that sometimes to survive in the playoffs, that's what you have to do. We saw that in 2022 when he didn't even win a race all year long and almost made it to the championship 4. We saw that in 2023 at times when they needed to do it to get through rounds, and they'll go on to win a championship. Saw it last year. This is just something that championships teams do, is that when they're dealt a bad hand, they find a way to win, and if not win, they find a way to come out the best that they possibly can, and that's what we saw. So again, Ryan Blaney, 7th overall in the playoff standings, plus 22 to the cut line. Chase Briscoe is on to the round of 12, and we're going to head to a track this week that Team Penske as a whole has historically been really, really good at in the past. But before we talk about this race that's coming up this weekend, we have one more thing to talk about to wrap up the week at Darlington, and that is the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. So we'll go through our starting lineups, our featured matchup picks, and we'll give you an update on the point standings when it comes to the overall standings. And I was talking with Steve earlier. I was like, I don't see a playoff standings list, and the playoff standings are really just how everybody finished at Darlington. So we'll take that. My starting lineup, William Byron got me 17 points. Thought he was going to be a lock for some great points on the day. That didn't work out. Denny Hamlin, 38. Kyle Larson got me 30. Tyler Reddick, bless his heart, got me 53 points. Chase Briscoe, the winner, got me 60. And Bell, I had in the garage. I believe I actually had Briscoe in the garage. And I saw Tara updating her fantasy lineup toward the end of stage 2, and I was like, I better check mine. I didn't even mention that to her, that she's the reason why I made the swap. But yeah, I swapped Briscoe out of the garage in for Bell. So Bell, only 12 points sitting in the garage. Feature matchups, I picked Briscoe over Reddick. That was right. I picked Blaney over Chastain. That was wrong. I picked Hamlin over Bell. That was right. And I picked Byron over Larson, and that was wrong by just a couple of positions. 218 points on the weekend, 20th overall. So not too bad, actually. Not a top 10, but not 60th or 70th like I've been in some of these races before.
I had Logano, Reddick, Larson, Briscoe, Wallace, and then I had Ryan. Actually, I had him in the garage to start, and I was going to see how stage points went. And when he didn't get any in stage 1, and then things happened in stage 2, I just hung with what I had at that point. And it ended up working out pretty decent, because the only guy I would have probably traded him for would have been Logano, and that would have been about a 3-point difference. But Bubba Wallace was worth 41, Briscoe worth 60. Larson was 30 and Reddick was 53. And the matchups, I had Reddick over Briscoes. I missed that by 1 position. I had Ryan over Chastain, missed that by 7 positions. Did have Hamlin over Bill, and I had Larson over Byron. So I got 2 out of 4. Another 20 points would have been nice, but solid day. Not a great day for me, but solid day to start the playoffs. And I have another usage of Ryan, in the next 9 weeks. So
yeah, we ended up around the same spot. You ended up tied for 18th overall, 221 points. So you beat me by a handful of points there. Let's take a look at the top 10 in points earned this past weekend at Darlington, and this will also be essentially the start of our playoff standings. We have a 3-way tie for 10th. Abby NNK, Blaney Kicks Beep, and Ryan's Hope, 228 points on the weekend. 9th is the Prime Minister 3, 236 points. Former champion Clyde's Chicken Pit Racing is tied with Chelsea Megan, our friend Chelsea there, 239 points on the weekend in 7th. Angie 12 is in 6th, 243 points. Cheesehead Fan is in 5th, 247 points. Bears Motor Club, 252 points in 3rd in a tie with Alyssa C. 2nd is Blaney Best, 253 points. And winning the weekend for Darlington Raceway, the Southern 500, Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League is JD Racing, 262 points. Let's take a look at the overall standings. I am in 64th overall, 4,519 points. So this is what I'm going to say. I'm going to focus on the playoff standings, even though I said last week we don't care about the playoff standings here. But that's where I catch fire, is in the playoffs. So we'll see if that holds true. That has actually been true for the last few years. I don't know what happened, but we'll see. Take a look at the top 10 in the overall standings. The Daisy Dukes is in 10th, 4,989 points. Mez 12 is in 9th. That's your team, 4,996. Go 12 Go is in 8th, 5,006 points. Dr. Race Chaser is in 7th, 5,015 points on the year. Blaney Kicks Beep is in 6th, 5,028. Jordan Daniels is in 5th, 5,051 points. Pit Stop Pro and Vans 12 are tied for 3rd, 5,109 points. Former champ here, creeping up, Clyde's Chicken Pit Racing, 2nd overall, 5,129 points. Maybe making an effort here to be a 3. They won the first 2 years, I think, maybe. A 3-time champion in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. Better watch out. Alyssa C., who holds down the lead right now, 5,204 points. And that brings us now to the race weekend at Gateway, just outside of St. Louis. Things kick off on Saturday, September 6th, 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We have practice for the NASCAR Cup Series from Worldwide Technology Raceway, is its official name. You can watch that on True TV, MRN, Sirius XM, NASCAR Radio on the radio. 5:40 p.m. Eastern Time is qualifying, still on True TV. The NASCAR Xfinity Series New Way 200 Sauced by Blues Hog race is on the CW network, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. MRN, Sirius XM, NASCAR Radio if you want to listen to that. And then you have Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, the Enjoy Illinois 300 from Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway, technically in Illinois, but outside of St. Louis, streaming on NBC Sports, on cable on the USA Network, which USA is going to be carrying the races for the next 6 races, and then the final 3 races of the playoffs will be on NBC. So we're going to be on cable for a while here, folks. HBO Max for the in-car cameras, MRN, Sirius XM, NASCAR Radio. Again, that's this Sunday, September 7th, 3 p.m. Eastern Time for the race at Gateway. Ryan Blaney at Gateway. One of his could have been maybe statistically his best track ever in the 3 races that we've been there, but something happens on the final lap last year. 3 starts at Gateway. He started 5th, 2nd, and 3rd. He's finished 4th, 6th, and 24th. Average finish of 11.3, average start of 3.3, 2 top 10s, 1 top 5, and 1 absolute heartbreaking finish last year.
We won't talk about it.
Yeah.
No. We avenge that.
We'll talk about another type of fuel in a few minutes.
This is revenge of the 12 week right here.
Yeah.
In many ways.
But Team Penske as a whole, super strong at this racetrack. Teammate Austin Cedric was gifted the victory last year. And so look for, hopefully, the Fords to be fast, Team Penske to be fast, and for Ryan to follow up that 18th place finish at Darlington with hopefully at least a top 5 in the second race of the first round of the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs. But what are your thoughts? You said you don't want to recap too much about what happened last year in that heartbreaking finish. Other than that, but what are your thoughts on this weekend? Do you think we're going to see, is Team Hendrick going to have their revenge from having kind of a terrible start to the playoffs here, or do you still see Ford? Do you still see Team Penske coming into this track? Because this is the type of track. It's that flat, not super long track. They've been good here. They've been good at Martinsville. They've been good at Phoenix. Is this still going to fall into their wheelhouse this weekend?
Exactly. This is exactly what they've been looking forward to in this whole round. This could be another weekend where they're all in the top 5, top 6 by the end of the race, including the 21. So just have a good weekend. Just have a good weekend on Saturday. Get yourself set up for Sunday. Have solid things on Sunday. Let's not have anything goofy happen out of our control. Let the out of control things happen to other people. Just being in the middle of those things are the only thing that's frustrating, because what you can control and what you can't, just causes the day to be different. So hopefully everything can be within your control, and would like to see one of them just good old fashioned butt kickings. Is what I'd really like to see.
So taking a look at this race last year, Ryan led 20 laps in this race. Other folks that led, Michael McDowell led at one point for 40 laps. Christopher Bell led for 80 laps, and teammate Austin Cindric 53 laps. So if we're thinking about fantasy and some people you want to look at, I'll go through the top 10. So Cindric ended up winning the race. Denny Hamlin was second. Brad Keselowski third. Reddick, Logano, Austin Dillon, Christopher Bell. Carson Hocevar was in 8th. Justin Haley hit one of his best runs of 2024, was in 9th. And Kyle Larson was in 10th. So you're seeing a lot of Toyotas up there, a lot of Fords, and a handful of Chevrolets, but you're also seeing a lot of guys that are all in the playoffs again this year. Cindric won, Hamlin's in, Reddick, Logano, Dillon, Bell, Larson. These are all folks that are in the playoffs this year that all finished in the top 10 in this race last year. You mentioned Austin Dillon. He's below the cut line right now, but not by a lot. He ran well here last year. I believe the first trip to Gateway, the 8 car with Kyle Busch won. So RCR has something figured out there as well. So is this an opportunity for him? So looking at fantasy, and I'll mention, actually, I set my fantasy lineup last week, like on Tuesday or something, just because anytime we're traveling, sometimes I get worried about forgetting or something. So kudos to me to get a top 20 out of not even knowing who was fast in practice and qualifying. So if somebody was to do that again this week, is there anyone that you would consider in your lineups? And you mentioned it, we got the reset, so a lot of people have a lot of the top drivers now that they can start. Are you just looking at playoff guys?
I'm pretty much going to look at playoff guys this week. Penske playoff guys, and they're the only Ford guys, and then a couple Toyotas, just because the Toyotas have come firing out of the gate. Hendrick, really, who knows? They're going to probably surprise everybody. Practice will probably be super. They'll probably be great in practice. And then Sunday will come around, and I don't know what. It's really kind of weird to watch, but I'm excited to see it too, because usually it's just almighty Hendrick, right? They're just always like 3-4 guys. They're always out there. They're always in front. They're always in the top 10 together. And this past weekend, they were almost all out to lunch. The 5 car had moments in the top 10, but even later in the race, he was kind of out to lunch. And it was just crazy to see how, I don't want to say slow, but just how weird, because nothing, the 48 got totally affected by something, but the other guys, didn't have anything special happen to them. They just didn't have speed. And that's really strange to see that whole organization have that kind of issue, especially going into the playoffs.
So again, if you want to tune in this weekend, things for the NASCAR Cup Series kick off on Saturday, September 6th, 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. You have practice for the Cup Series on True TV. Qualifying is at 5:40 p.m. Eastern Time at Gateway. True TV, MRN, Sirius XM, NASCAR Radio on the radio. And then Sunday, we have the Enjoy Illinois 300, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, NBC Sports app, USA Network on cable, HBO Max for the in-car cameras, MRN, Sirius XM, NASCAR Radio, if you'd like to listen to the race that way. Well, Steve, I think that pretty much wraps up everything.
Well, except for one thing.
Oh, that's right.
So last week they announced this 10 runner, right? Was it Wednesday? Late Wednesday afternoon, and I hurried up and got a bottle ordered Wednesday night. And
So what is 10 runner, Steve?
10 runner is Ryan's new bourbon, and it's kind of interesting. If you read their thing, it's read their website, 10runner.com. 10 runner is a celebration of legacy for legends past, present, and yet to come. From Prohibition's daring drivers to stock car racing's early starters, our whiskey was crafted to honor those who came before us. And it's inspired by the past and family legacy of racing. Ryan knew he wanted to create a whiskey that balanced the boldness of competitive spirit and down-to-earth dedication to family. A whiskey that brings people together the way it has for generations, but isn't afraid to also bring some heat. His creativity and passion for the craft are the driving force behind the brand and a symbol of the quality you can expect in each glass. And it's really cool. It says, slow down, share a glass, and toast to the road ahead. And it says it's their first batch, special limited release, blended from some of Kentucky's finest straight bourbons, and in their opinion, damn good. We're going to find out here in a second. This was what was interesting is it said 3 to 5 business days when I ordered it, and got a tracking number on Thursday, and then when I got the tracking number, it said Saturday. So I thought, oh great, I'll have it for the race. And I thought, I don't want to open on the race day. I mean, I will in the weeks to come now. Probably have a glass during the race. This kind of takes me back to the Jack Daniel days. I don't know if you did you help sponsor back in the Jack Daniel days?
I was not old enough yet, I don't think, when Dave was running that car just yet. So I was around some people. So the first question I saw Ryan's fans like kind of cross generations here. You have a lot of like older Dave fans, mm-hmm. and then you have a lot of really young fans that are fans of Ryan. And one of the first things I got on our social media posts when we were sharing about this was, why is it not 12 runner?
Yeah.
And obviously, if you're a longtime fan of the Blaney, like we say sometimes here, the Blaney racing family, 10 is the family number. His grandfather Lou raced the 10. Dave, his dad, raced the 10. Dale, at points in his career, raced the 10 and currently races the 10. Ryan raced the 10. And all the way coming up through in Bandoleros and legend cars and late models. And this is the one late model that's available from Lionel that he had. Raced the 10. Ryan didn't get to 12 until he ended up in the Cup Series with Team Penske. So that's relatively new. So that's why it is 10 runner. And if you watched or if you watch the video or if you see some of the promotional stills that are out there, you'll see actually pictures of Lou and family cars and things like that show the old number 10. And that's kind of where that comes from. First taste test.
It's not, a little kick. It's 103 proof. So first off, it's a little stronger than some, but I like higher proof. And you know what? It's pretty smooth. It was not bad at all. Didn't have the kick I was expecting, because usually the higher proof, I'm kind of like, it says the aromas of sweet bread and almond. I can smell a little bit of the almond here. A twist of chocolate and caramel. The color is a dark amber red. Of course, it's glass. I'm going to show it, but it's cool glass. But crisp apple taste with honey, spiced peppercorn, and baking spices, vanilla, and toasted walnut finish. I can definitely get a little bit of the walnut there. And a little bit of the honey. I'm not as, my taste buds aren't maybe as refined as some other people, but crisp apple with a lingering note of fried dough, cinnamon, and ginger. And that was the kind of cool thing too, is there's a little bit of sweetness to it, and you can catch that a little bit if you savor it a little bit. It's pretty smooth, really. I was really surprised at how smooth. I don't drink a lot. I haven't really had this first one in a while, really, truthfully, but I do like a good glass of bourbon now and then. And I actually, of course, I'm going to recommend it, but pinky out. So pinky out.
And this is something that we're not sure whether this will end up in stores, and maybe it will end up in stores or something, North Carolina area or something like that. But right now, if you go to, we're being like official, unofficial spokespersons here. Yeah. If you go to 10runner.com, you can order it in a lot of states. There are certain states that you're not going to be able to order it, but they will ship it to your home in several states in the country. You're supposed to have an adult there to sign for it when it shows up. That's kind of the way that they it's not a
Yeah.
loophole, it's just how the law works. So
Law
keep
works.
that in mind, that if you do order it, you need to be an adult, and there needs to be an adult there to sign for it when it shows up at your house. So you do have the opportunity to do that. But check that out. They have social media accounts on Facebook and X and probably Instagram and beyond. If you search for 10 Runner there. So
I know
it's just kind of
Instagram.
something unexpected that came out this week.
Yeah, Instagram was one of the big ones, and that the pricing. Some people I saw the price that $75 plus the shipping ends up being around $100 total. But truthfully, for a specialty bourbon like this, if you price it out versus some other things, it's pretty competitive. And for somewhat like a sponsor, here's the funny thing: like back in the day, Jack Daniels was Dave's sponsor, right? And Jack came into Cup Series actually at the time Dave took over that car, but that was a sponsor set up through Childress. This is a product of Ryan, right? This is something that he's put together in cooperation with who knows who and so forth, and it's something that he wanted to do. So you're not just supporting like Body Armor being a sponsor of Ryan, you're supporting Ryan, and this is something that who knows, it may never be on the car, or it'd be kind of cool though if they did. I'm challenging anybody who listens to the podcast or is in the Discord who likes to design things. Let's design a 10 Runner car and see what it looks like.
Yeah, that was my first thought. I haven't. I've let my iRacing rig behind me kind of collect a little dust recently. I need to get back into that. But one of my favorite things to do is to make cars for iRacing. That was my first thought. I was like, ooh, here's a new sponsor that we can throw on a car going forward. So the other cool thing, again, if you do purchase this, I'm just thinking as a fan and as a collector, it'd be a real cool thing to get autographed someday. Ryan does a lot of appearances at like Advanced Auto Parts on race weekends. That's a great place to catch him. I don't know about. You probably can't bring that into a track. You probably have to be somewhere else like that, just because of the glass bottle. But that might be a cool item to get autographed and put up on your shelf. It's also one of those cool things that right now I can see it as being a race day tradition, just your traditional glass of that while you're watching the race, or something you toast a victory with, or maybe you do both. You might need more. Hopefully, you're going to need many bottles. Get it
at the end of the season. That's the thing. Is now every Sunday I'll probably have a glass. The wife might try it, mix it with something, and by the end of the season I'll probably order the second bottle.
And it actually would be cool, thinking of signatures. This would be one of those ones where it'd be cool to get Ryan and Dave and Dale on there signed. I think that would be kind of cool. Three of the remaining drivers that have run the 10 in the Blaney family, at least for now. Maybe someday there'll be somebody else along the
mixing with the Body Armor. That's something that'll be our next video later this week. we'll mix it with a Body Armor. It's a fine bourbon though, and that's, if you noticed, I actually went back and finished it. I poured myself basically about a shot and a half, a couple ounces, but it's not bad. Really, really smooth and really tasty. So I recommend, obviously, not just because of who it is, but it's a pretty nice bourbon for those who like to drink a nice bourbon.
So cheers to the playoffs, and let's hope that, like 10 Runner, the 12 team is smooth the rest of the way throughout the 2025 season. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to this episode of the Team Blaney podcast during the week and on race day. You can find us on Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Shout out again to our YouTube channel. You can go back and watch the Jonathan Hassler interview from last week. You can go back and watch our 2 interviews with Ryan Blaney earlier this year, and past interviews with tons of members of the 12 team and crew and beyond. Just search for Team Blaney. You'll find us. We'd also like to encourage you to support the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation. Ryan's official charitable organization benefits brain health causes like UPMC Sports Medicine and the Alzheimer's Association. To learn more, visit ryanblaneyfamilyfoundation.org or follow them on Facebook, X, and Instagram. So for my co-host Steve Mez, I'm Adam Rogers. We'll catch you next time right here on the Team Blaney podcast.
Good night, 10 Runner.